Welcome to Silverline API. Today we're building an API that retrieves data from two distinct sources: an external Postgres database for car details like make, model, year, and standard price, and a CSV file for weekly discounts, and combines them into a single unified API endpoint. When a car's manufacturing year is provided as a GET parameter, the API should return the full inventory for that year, including the final discounted price. This price is calculated by taking the standard price from Postgres database and subtracting the discount from the CSV. Once logged in, begin by navigating to the Data Sources tab. In the Data Sources tab, ensure that the Postgres database is connected and that the CSV file is uploaded or connected via FTP. This setup makes all relevant data sources ready for querying and integration. In our case, these two data sources are already added. We have the car dealership database and the discounts CSV file. If they're not connected, you can create a new data source by entering the necessary details and following the prompts. Next, navigate to the APIs tab and click the New API button. Select Multi-Data Source from the drop-down and click OK. You can now add independent queries by clicking the Add Query button, or simply type your request in natural language. Silverline API's AI assistant will interpret and process it. I'll use natural language here and type, "Give me the details of the cars such as make, model, price, etc., along with their discounts." Once the request is entered, Silverline API analyzes the data to determine the best tables and columns for retrieving the needed information. It then presents this analysis for your review. This is the stage where you can confirm or adjust the suggested data mappings. Once confirmed, the system generates the necessary queries automatically, ensuring efficient and accurate data retrieval. Here, Silverline API's AI assistant has accurately identified the needed data sources, like the car dealership database. It identified that the cars table and car ID column are best suited to map with the CSV file, specifically with the car ID column in the CSV file. We can confirm that this data looks accurate. Here, two queries have been built for us automatically. The first query is from the car dealership database. This is the Postgres database, and the second query comes from the flat file. Notice how these queries are joined using a parameter. Since our data comes from two sources, Silverline API uses a unique query linking format. The format uses query ID, the ID of the query. In this case, it's the first query. These queries are linked by the car ID column. Essentially, you select the discounts and car ID from the discount CSV file, where car ID matches in this particular format. This format involves two open curly braces, the keyword query ID, followed by the first query's ID, and the column retrieved by this query. Information from one query flows into the other through this linkage. When adding queries manually, ensure the linking format is properly used. Again, the format is two open curly braces with query ID, followed by the query ID you want to link and the column. Once queries are generated, run them independently to verify the results. If needed, modify individual queries to refine the data retrieval process. Make sure the queries return expected results to avoid errors in the final API output. A green checkmark indicates successful execution of an independent query. You can access and modify independent queries by clicking the edit or pen icon next to the query. Let's run the first query now. This query is from the Postgres database for the car dealership. It has executed successfully, as you can see. Now let's go back and run the second query. As noted earlier, there's a linking parameter here with two open curly braces, query ID, and associated values. Go ahead and run this with some sample data to test. This is the response we got, showing both queries executed successfully. The green checkmark confirms this. Now let's give this API a name. We'll call it Discounted Prices. Satisfied with the query results, let's move to the Script tab. At this point, the system automatically merges the queries into a single script. Here's the script that's working to merge the two queries. This is the parameter used, query result set, which holds the result from the Query Setup tab. We're testing with sample data here, not full data, but you can see sample values tested with in the flat file query. Let's make sure our Python script is ready as well. Remember, if we're testing our script, ensure everything matches exactly. We're going to start by using the parameter query result set. So I'm going to swap it out with the sample data AI provided us, as we really want to use the data we've tested with in our query setup. Now that we have the results, we can run the script, and here it is. Since we had a single flat file value tested in our query setup tab, this is the result we see here. When you actually call the endpoint, it'll have the entire data set. What we have now is just a sample result set to ensure our implementation and testing are successful. At this point, we can go ahead and save this API. Save is successful. We can navigate to our API endpoint tab, and our API is ready to go. Clicking on Send gives us the result. As mentioned earlier, the endpoint provides the full result from our data sources, not just what we were testing. Let's return to our script setup and add another attribute called the final price. Our endpoint gives us both the price and the discount. The discount comes from the CSV file while the rest is from the Postgres database. We need another attribute here called the final price, which is the price minus the discount. To achieve this, we simply return to our script setup and, using natural language, say, add another attribute called final price, which equals price minus discount. And there you have it, our final price. Let's head back to our API endpoint to confirm this. It's asking me to save it first, so I'll go ahead and do that. The script is saved successfully. Now, let me return to my endpoint. And there's our final price. As you can see, this applies to the entire dataset, showing our final price here, calculated as the difference between the price and the discount attributes. This completes the API endpoint process. Let's give this API route a friendly descriptive name. I'll name it Discounted Prices, submit it, and if you check back at the API endpoint, you'll see it's called Discounted Prices. This will return our final results from the two different data sources. We can also go to our API Access Control tab to set up the type of authentication we need. For this example, I'm going to set it up as an API key. Here's my API key, and I'll save the authentication. Checking back at our API endpoint, here's our endpoint. We can perform a quick test now. Let's run a quick test, and I'll run it through curl here. Here's the endpoint we just created. I'm calling it through curl with a post request method. Perfect, there it is. Here's our response. It's that simple to build APIs using Silverline API. In this case, we've built a multi-data source API combined into a single endpoint. Now, let's see how we could add a get parameter to our endpoint. So if you're looking for just the year, it'll give us all the inventory for that year. It's very straightforward. We go back to our data analysis and query setup tab. Let's edit the query here. We could add where year is year. This is how you include parameters: 2 open curly braces, parameter name, and 2 closed curly braces. And here's our result. We can run a quick test and see the result. Let me go back to ensure our other query is also functioning correctly. Perfect. We'll proceed to save this. It's asking us to ensure that the script is running. There we go, perfect. Let's save this. Now, if we return to our API endpoint and specify the year as a get parameter here, here's the result. This is our get parameter year, and we've switched the method to get. We can publish this. We can also run this with curl to test it once more. Let's run the test through curl. As you can see, we have the get parameter for the year. Let's run a quick test. I'm using curl here for testing. Here we have the get request, and this is our API with the year set to 2023 for testing. There you go, that's our result set. With that, our API is ready to use. For more examples and detailed documentation, visit www.silverlineapi.com. Thanks for watching, and happy API building!